Lords, this group of amendments are very important because I really do think we've got a crisis when it comes to SEND provision. I'm particularly attracted to the Amendment 498 in terms of a SEND provision review in the name of the Noble Lord Holmes of Richmond, Baroness Grey-Thompson and Lord Watson of Invergowrie. But also Baroness Grey-Thompson's Amendment 502V on the need for more transparency and reporting on SEND funding in state-funded schools seems a key and obvious demand, because the SEND issue is having huge financial impact on schools, on education in general. But for me, as well as that, the issue of SEND provision is important because I think that it's potentially shaping how young people see themselves, and in some instances they're being encouraged to develop a habit for dependence and pathologising their own everyday experiences. In a situation in which 1 in 5 children in the UK are now identified as having SEND needs, and with the number of education, health and care plans for those with the most severe needs increasing by 83% from 2015-16 to 2023-24, and the number of 11 to 15-year-olds receiving disability living allowance, in which the main condition determining eligibility is a learning disability such as ADHD, and that's increased by 70% between 2018 and 2024. Something peculiar, it seems to me, is going on. And I think as part of explaining what's happening here, we do need to acknowledge that there's a widening social definition of mental health and neurodiversity, an issue I'll raise briefly again in the next group. Informally, if you go into any school and talk to pupils of all ages, as I do, and there's obviously people who are teachers or anyone who's familiar with young people, when you go and talk to young people, they regularly describe themselves these days through the prism of a range of mental health acronyms or their particular divergence from the neurotypical norm. They use the language of medical textbooks and psychiatry with ease. Meanwhile, teachers too think in terms of these labels. I'm sure that we're all watching Educating Yorkshire on Channel 4, it's great viewing, but almost inevitably, if there's a behaviour issue, staff suggest testing the pupil for ADHD as both an explanation and a solution. So I do think that investigating what's going on here is essential, and that's why I'm interested in the review. But also in that context, I also hope that the movers of the amendment and the Minister get the opportunity to read, if they haven't read it already, a new policy exchange report entitled Out of Control, Addressing the Rise in Psychiatric and Neurodevelopmental Disorders amongst Children and Young People. I don't always agree with policy exchange, but I found this report fascinating. One issue it identifies is a bug in the system of support. It argues it's designed to meet the needs of a small number of specialised cases rather than the sizable numbers that they are now expected to support. And even more troubling, these systems of support can incentivise diagnosis-seeking behaviour that can squeeze support for those with the most severe need. And that those kind of issues were already touched on by the Noble Lord Gove in an earlier group. So again, to return to spending on EHCPs for those with SEND has ballooned, but funding per head has fallen by nearly a third since 2015 to 2016. So I just hope that the movers of the amendments and the Minister will consider the risks of overdiagnosis in relation to SEND, but also how current support may inadvertently encourage an escalation in perceived need rather than targeting the support where it is absolutely needed the most, as has been vividly described by some of the speakers in this group.